The mining station on Kepler 442 hummed with the constant noise of extraction equipment and fuel processors. Jake Martinez wiped grease from his hands as he finished repairing another broken atmospheric recycler. The human colony had been struggling for 3 years now, barely managing to keep their equipment running in the harsh alien environment. Most of the other species in the galaxy considered humans too primitive for serious colonization efforts. But Jake and his fellow mechanics proved them wrong every day by keeping impossible machinery functional with nothing but spare parts and determination. The emergency alarm suddenly pierced through the industrial noise. Jake dropped his wrench and ran toward the communication center, where Captain Sarah Chun was already coordinating with the orbital monitoring station. "What's the situation?" Jake asked, breathing hard from his sprint across the facility. "Something big crashed about 15 kilometers northeast of here," Sarah replied, her fingers dancing across the holographic display. "The impact signature suggests it wasn't a meteorite." "Could be a ship?" Jake studied the readings over her shoulder. The energy patterns looked strange, unlike anything he had seen from the various alien vessels that occasionally passed through their system. "Should we send out a rescue team?" "Already assembling one. I need you to grab your emergency repair kit. If it's a damaged ship, we might be able to help." Sarah's expression was serious but determined. The human colony had a strict policy of offering assistance to anyone in distress, regardless of species or political affiliation. 20 minutes later, Jake found himself bouncing across the rocky terrain in their all-terrain vehicle alongside Dr. Lisa Wong, their xenobiologist and security chief Marcus Torres. The landscape of Kepler 442b was harsh and unforgiving, with jagged rock formations and frequent electrical storms. Most aliens avoided planets like this, preferring worlds with more comfortable conditions. As they crested a ridge, Jake saw something that made him stop the vehicle abruptly. In the valley below lay an enormous dragon, easily 50 meters long from nose to tail. Her scales were a deep emerald green that seemed to shimmer even in the dim light of the alien sun. But what immediately caught Jake's attention was the obvious damage. Both of her rear legs were twisted at unnatural angles, clearly broken in multiple places. "Holy hell," Marcus whispered, instinctively reaching for his weapon before remembering their mission. "She's hurt," Lisa said, pulling out her scanning equipment. "Those leg fractures look severe. She must have crashed from a significant height." Jake was already studying the dragon's condition with the practical eye of someone who fixed broken things for a living. "Look at how she's positioned herself. She's protecting something underneath her wings." As if responding to his words, small chirping sounds emerged from beneath the dragon's massive form. Her head lifted slightly, and Jake found himself looking into eyes that held an intelligence and desperation that transcended species barriers. "Babies," Lisa breathed. "She has hatchlings under there?" The mother dragon's breathing was labored, and Jake could see she was struggling to stay conscious. Despite her obvious pain and exhaustion, she kept her wings protectively spread over her offspring. Her eyes tracked the human's movements, but she didn't show aggression. Instead, there was something almost pleading in her gaze. She knows she can't protect them in this condition, Jake realized. She's asking for help. Marcus looked skeptical. "How can you possibly know that?" "Same way I know when a machine is about to fail," Jake replied, slowly approaching the dragon. "You learn to read the signs." The dragon's head moved to track his approach, but she didn't retreat or threaten. Jake could see the intelligence in her eyes, the way she evaluated his movements and intentions. When he stopped just outside her reach, she made a soft rumbling sound that somehow conveyed both warning and hope. "Easy, girl," Jake said gently. "We're here to help." Lisa's scanner beeped softly as she took readings from a safe distance. "Jake, these readings are incredible. She's not just any dragon. The energy patterns suggest she's a spacefaring species. Her internal temperature regulation is designed for vacuum conditions." "That explains the crash," Marcus observed. "Something must have forced her to make an emergency landing." Jake knelt down slowly, keeping his movements deliberate and non-threatening. The dragon watched him carefully, her breathing still labored but somehow less panicked. Lisa, can your scanner tell us anything about those leg injuries? Compound fractures in both rear legs. Multiple breaks. She won't be able to fly or even walk without medical intervention. Lisa paused, studying her readings more carefully. Jake, there's something else. She's malnourished. Severely so. This isn't just from the crash. The implications hit Jake immediately. A spacefaring dragon, injured and starving, with babies to protect. She's been neglected. Someone was supposed to be caring for her, and they abandoned her. As if understanding his words, the dragon made a low, mournful sound that seemed to confirm his suspicion. Jake felt a familiar anger rising in his chest. The same feeling he got when he saw good equipment ruined by careless owners. We have to help her, he said firmly. Jake. She's a 50-meter dragon with babies to protect, Marcus warned. Even injured, she could kill all of us without breaking a sweat. Look at her eyes, Marcus. Really look at them. Jake never took his gaze off the dragon as he spoke. She's not a threat. She's a mother asking us to save her children. The dragon seemed to understand their conversation. She shifted slightly, wincing in pain from her broken legs, and lifted one wing just enough to reveal 3 small hatchlings underneath. They were no bigger than house cats, with scales that sparkled like jewels in the alien sunlight. Their eyes were bright and curious, completely trusting of their mother's protection. They're beautiful, Lisa whispered. Jake stood up slowly and began backing toward their vehicle. I'm going to get my tools. Lisa, I need you to run every scan you can think of. I want to know exactly what we're dealing with medically. Marcus, contact the base. Tell them we're going to need supplies for an extended rescue operation. Extended operation? Marcus questioned. Jake, we don't know anything about dragon physiology. How can we possibly treat injuries like that? Jake was already pulling his emergency repair kit from the vehicle. Same way I fix anything else. I study the problem, figure out how the parts are supposed to work together, and then I put them back the way they should be. She's not a machine, Jake. No, she's not. Jake shouldered his tool bag and started back toward the dragon. She's something much more important. She's a mother who needs our help. The dragon watched his approach with those incredibly intelligent eyes. When Jake knelt down again, she made a different sound, softer and more trusting. One of the hatchlings poked its head out from under her wing and chirped curiously at him. That's right, little one, Jake said gently. We're going to take care of your mama. Lisa continued her scans while Marcus contacted the base. Jake studied the dragon's injured legs with the same methodical approach he used for complex machinery. The breaks were bad, but not impossible to fix. He had welded together stranger things with less sophisticated equipment. Lisa, do your scans show anything like a skeletal structure? Something I can use to understand how these bones are supposed to align? Getting detailed imagery now, Lisa replied, her scanner humming with activity. Jake, this is fascinating. Her bone structure is actually similar to Earth reptiles, but much more robust. The bones are designed to handle the stress of spaceflight. Jake nodded, already forming a plan in his mind. He had fixed landing struts on spacecraft before. This was just a different kind of engineering challenge. The dragon continued to watch him with those trusting eyes. Somehow, she seemed to understand that he was trying to help. When Jake slowly reached out to examine one of her injured legs, she remained perfectly still despite what must have been considerable pain. Incredible, Marcus murmured, finally beginning to understand what Jake had seen immediately. She knows you're trying to help her. Intelligence recognizes intelligence, Jake replied, gently probing the injury site. The dragon's breathing hitched with pain, but she didn't pull away. She's evaluating us the same way we're evaluating her. As the alien sun began to set, painting the sky in strange purple and orange hues, Jake realized they were beginning something unprecedented. No human had ever attempted to provide medical care to a space dragon before, but looking into those trusting, desperate eyes, Jake knew he would find a way. The hatchlings chirped softly under their mother's protective wing, completely dependent on the 3 humans who had stopped to help a stranger in distress. It was exactly the kind of moment that defined what it meant to be human in a galaxy full of species that often seemed to have forgotten the importance of simple compassion. Jake rolled up his sleeves and began unpacking his tools. He had work to do. 3 hours later, Jake had transformed the crash site into something resembling a field hospital. The emergency supplies from the colony base had arrived via drone, along with additional medical equipment that Dr. Wong had requisitioned. The dragon, who they had started calling Emerald because of her beautiful green scales, had remained remarkably patient throughout their preparations. "The bone fragments are more complex than I initially thought," Lisa said, studying the detailed scans on her portable display. "But the good news is that dragon bones have incredible regenerative properties. If we can align them properly, they should heal much stronger than before." Jake wiped sweat from his forehead as he assembled a makeshift surgical framework around Emerald's injured legs. He had cannibalized parts from their vehicles, suspension system, and combined them with medical braces to create something that could provide the support needed for bones of this size. "The challenge is going to be keeping her still during the procedure," Marcus observed. "Even sedated, she weighs several tons." "She won't move," Jake said with quiet confidence. "She understands what we're doing." To prove his point, Jake approached Emerald's massive head. She lowered it slightly, bringing her enormous eye to his level. The intelligence there was unmistakable, along with a trust that Jake found both humbling and terrifying. "We're going to fix your legs now," he said, speaking as clearly as possible. "It's going to hurt, but we need you to stay very still. Can you do that for your babies?" Emerald made a soft rumbling sound and carefully positioned herself in a way that would give Jake better access to her injured legs while still keeping her hatchlings protected under her wing. "I'll be damned," Marcus whispered. "She actually understands." Lisa approached with an injection device loaded with a sedative she had synthesized from their medical supplies. "This should help with the pain without making her unconscious. I've adapted it based on her metabolic readings." The injection went smoothly, with Emerald barely flinching at the needle. Jake began the delicate work of realigning the fractured bones in her first leg. It was like performing surgery on a piece of equipment that was both incredibly robust and surprisingly delicate. "Bone fragment alignment is good," Lisa reported, monitoring her scanners. "Blood flow is maintaining throughout the procedure." Jake worked with the steady hands of someone who had performed thousands of precision repairs. Each bone fragment had to be positioned exactly right, then secured with the improvised bracing system he had designed. The dragon remained perfectly still, only occasionally making soft sounds that seemed to be directed at her hidden hatchlings. "Jake, we've got company," Marcus announced, looking at his communication device. "Long-range sensors are picking up 3 ships approaching the system. Configuration suggests they're Zephyrian traders." Jake paused in his work. The Zephyrians were one of the more aggressive merchant species in this sector, known for treating other life forms as commodities to be bought and sold. "How long until they reach us?" 6 hours, maybe 7. "That should be enough time to finish the surgery and get Emerald mobile." Jake resumed his careful work on the bone alignment. "But we need to be ready for trouble." Lisa frowned as she checked her readings. "Jake, I'm picking up some concerning data. Emerald's nutritional levels suggest she hasn't had a proper meal in weeks. Even if we fix her legs, she might not have the strength to fly." The implications were troubling. A space dragon of Emerald's size would need massive amounts of food to maintain her energy levels, especially while nursing hatchlings. Jake began to suspect that her crash hadn't been accidental. "Lisa, can you tell if she was being held captive? Maybe those injuries weren't from a crash at all." "The bone breaks are consistent with impact trauma," Lisa replied after studying her data more carefully. "But you're right about the malnutrition. She's been deliberately starved." Jake felt his anger building again. The idea of someone treating a magnificent creature like Emerald as property was offensive on every level. "Marcus, when those Zephyrian ships arrive, I want to be ready for any scenario." "Understood. I'll prep our defensive systems." Jake finished aligning the bones in Emerald's first leg and began applying the external bracing system. The dragon watched his every movement with those incredibly expressive eyes, occasionally making encouraging rumbling sounds when he paused to check his work. "Your leg is going to be stronger than ever once this heals," Jake told her as he secured the final brace. "Now let's work on the other one." The second leg proved more challenging. The breaks were more complex, with several small fragments that needed to be positioned precisely. Jake found himself completely absorbed in the work, his mind focused on the puzzle of reassembling something that had been broken. As he worked, one of the hatchlings emerged more fully from under Emerald's wing. The little dragon was curious about what Jake was doing to its mother, chirping softly and tilting its head as it watched the repair work. "You're a brave little one, aren't you?" Jake said, smiling despite his concentration. "Your mama is very lucky to have babies like you." The hatchlings seemed to understand the friendly tone and chirped back at him. Emerald turned her head to watch the interaction, and Jake could swear he saw approval in her expression. "Jake, the Zephyrian ships are moving faster than expected," Marcus reported. "They'll be here in 4 hours, almost finished." Jake was making the final adjustments to the second bracing system. "Lisa, how are her vital signs?" "Strong and stable. The sedative is working perfectly and the bone alignment looks excellent." Jake stepped back to survey his work. Both of Emerald's rear legs were now supported by a framework of braces and supports that would allow the bones to heal properly while still permitting limited movement. "It wasn't pretty, but it would work. How does that feel, girl?" he asked, patting Emerald's flank gently. The dragon carefully tested her weight on the repaired legs. The bracing system held perfectly, distributing the load exactly as Jake had calculated. Emerald made a sound that could only be described as relief and gratitude. "She'd be able to walk now, but flying is still out of the question for several weeks," Lisa observed. "Those bones need time to heal completely." "That's a problem," Marcus said. "If those Zephyrian ships are here for her, we can't protect her indefinitely." Jake was already thinking ahead. "We bring her back to the base. Our defensive systems can handle 3 trader ships, and she'd be safe while she heals." "Jake, she's 50 meters long," Marcus pointed out. "Our largest hangar bay can't accommodate her." "Then we modify the hangar bay. We've got construction equipment and plenty of space." Lisa looked up from her scanner with excitement. "Jake, I've been analyzing her energy patterns more carefully. I think she's not just space capable. I think she's actually faster than light capable." "You mean she can travel between star systems on her own?" "The energy signature suggests she has some kind of biological jump drive. She doesn't need a ship at all." Jake stared at Emerald with new respect. A creature that could travel between stars under her own power was beyond his previous understanding of what was possible in biology. No wonder someone had wanted to capture and control her. That makes her incredibly valuable, Marcus realized, and explains why those Zephyrian ships are coming. As if summoned by their conversation, Jake's communication device buzzed with an incoming message. The holographic display showed a Zephyrian captain with the typical scaled features and predatory expression of his species. "Human colony. You are harboring stolen property," the alien announced without preamble. "Return our dragon immediately or face the consequences." Jake looked at Emerald, who was listening to the transmission with obvious recognition and fear in her eyes. Her hatchlings sensed their mother's distress and huddled closer under her wing. "This is Jake Martinez of the Kepler 442b colony," he responded. "We found an injured dragon and provided medical assistance. We don't recognize any property claims. The dragon and her offspring are legally purchased goods. We have documentation of ownership." "Documentation can be faked," Jake replied coldly. "And we don't recognize the sale of intelligent beings as legal under any circumstances." The Zephyrian captain's expression became more threatening. "You have 2 hours to return our property, or we will take it by force." The transmission ended, leaving the 3 humans staring at each other in the growing darkness of the alien night. "Well," Marcus said finally, "I guess we're going to find out how good our defensive systems really are." Jake looked at Emerald and her babies, then at the jury-rigged medical equipment that had given the dragon family a chance at survival. There was no question in his mind about what they would do. Get ready for a fight, he said. Nobody takes our patience. The next 2 hours passed in a blur of preparation. Jake worked frantically to make Emerald mobile enough to reach the colony base, while Marcus coordinated defensive positions and Lisa continued monitoring the dragon's condition. The Zephyrian ships had taken position just outside the planet's atmosphere, waiting for their ultimatum to expire. Emerald, we need to move now, Jake said as he finished attaching mobility assists to her bracing system. Can you walk with your babies? The great dragon carefully gathered her 3 hatchlings against her chest, supporting them with her forearms while using her wings for balance. The jury-rigged braces on her rear legs held her weight perfectly as she took her first tentative steps. Movement looks good, Lisa reported. The bone alignment is maintaining perfectly. They made slow progress across the rocky terrain, with Emerald moving carefully to avoid jarring her healing injuries. The hatchlings seemed to understand the urgency, staying perfectly still against their mother's chest. Jake drove the all-terrain vehicle alongside them, ready to provide support if the bracing system failed. Jake, the Zephyrian ships are descending, Marcus reported over the communication system. They'll be in weapons range in 20 minutes. How much farther to the base? 8 kilometers. At this pace, we won't make it in time. Jake looked at Emerald, who was already pushing herself harder than she should. Her breathing was labored, and he could see the strain the movement was placing on her weakened body. The weeks of malnutrition had taken their toll. We need a different plan, he decided. Marcus, how long can our defensive perimeter hold against 3 ships? Depends on their firepower. Maybe 30 minutes if we're lucky. Jake was quiet for a moment, thinking through their options. Then he looked at Emerald, who was watching him with those incredibly intelligent eyes. Emerald, I need to ask you something important, he said, stopping the vehicle. Your babies are going to be safe no matter what happens. But I need to know if you can fight. The dragon's expression changed, becoming more focused and alert. She carefully set her hatchlings down behind a large boulder formation, making soft sounds that Jake interpreted as instructions for them to stay hidden. Lisa, what do your scans show about her combat capabilities? Jake, the energy readings are incredible. Even malnourished and injured, she's registering power levels that rival our base's main reactor. Emerald stood to her full height, spreading her wings wide. Even with the bracing systems on her legs, she was a magnificent and terrifying sight. When she opened her mouth, Jake could see the bioluminescent energy building in her throat. She's a living weapon, Marcus breathed over the communication system. The Zephyrian ships appeared over the horizon, their sleek forms cutting through the alien sky. They moved in a standard attack formation, clearly expecting to overwhelm any resistance from the primitive. Human colony. Jake positioned himself between the approaching ships and Emerald's hidden hatchlings. This is Jake Martinez. You're trespassing on sovereign human territory. Leave now or face the consequences. The lead Zephyrian ship responded by firing a warning shot that exploded near the boulder formation. Emerald's reaction was immediate and terrifying. The energy that had been building in her throat erupted in a concentrated beam that struck the lead ship's shields with devastating force. Direct hit. Marcus shouted over the communication system. Their shields are down to 60%. The Zephyrian ship spread out, trying to flank Emerald's position, but the dragon was far from helpless. Despite her injuries, she moved with surprising agility, using her wings to help maintain balance while keeping her feet planted firmly on the ground. Jake watched in amazement as Emerald demonstrated why space dragons were legendary throughout the galaxy. Her energy beams were precisely controlled, targeting the ship's weapon systems rather than trying for killing shots. She was fighting to disable, not destroy. She's giving them a chance to surrender, Jake realized, but the Zephyrians were not interested in mercy. The 3 ships concentrated their fire on Emerald, forcing her to use her wings as shields. The energy impacts were absorbed by her natural bio-armor, but Jake could see that each hit was wearing her down. Her energy levels are dropping, Lisa reported. She can't maintain this intensity much longer. Jake made a decision that would have seemed insane an hour earlier. He grabbed his repair kit and ran toward Emerald's position, dodging energy blasts from the attacking ships. "Jake, what are you doing?" Marcus shouted. "Helping a friend," Jake replied, reaching Emerald's side. The dragon glanced down at him and he could see exhaustion in her eyes. "Emerald, I need you to trust me. Focus all your energy into one massive shot. I'm going to give you the power you need." Jake quickly attached power cables from his emergency kit to contact points along Emerald's bioluminescent scales. It was completely improvised, but his instincts told him that her biological systems could interface with human technology. "Lisa, I need you to reroute power from our base reactors. Everything we can spare." "Jake, that's insane. The feedback could kill both of you. Do it!" The power surge hit Emerald's biological systems like a lightning strike. Instead of being harmed, she seemed to absorb the energy and convert it into something far more potent. The glow in her throat became blinding as she focused on the lead. Zephyrian's ship. The energy beam that erupted from Emerald was unlike anything Jake had ever seen. It struck the lead ship with such force that the vessel's entire electrical system overloaded. The ship fell from the sky like a stone, its crew unconscious but alive. The remaining two Zephyrian ships immediately broke off their attack and began retreating toward space. They had clearly not expected to face a dragon with access to industrial-level power sources. "This is Captain Vex of the Zephyrian Trade Fleet," came a transmission from the retreating ships. "We withdraw our claim. The dragon is yours." As the ships disappeared into the darkness of space, Jake disconnected the power cables from Emerald's scales. The dragon looked down at him with what could only be described as gratitude and respect. "You fought alongside me," she said, and Jake's heart nearly stopped. "You can talk?" He stammered. "Of course I can talk. I simply chose not to until now." Emerald's voice was like distant thunder, deep and resonant. "You humans proved yourselves worthy of conversation." Lisa and Marcus came running across the battlefield, their sensors going crazy from the residual energy readings. "Jake, the power feedback created some kind of biological-technological interface," Lisa said excitedly. "You didn't just give her energy. You created a temporary symbiotic connection." Emerald carefully retrieved her hatchlings from their hiding place, nuzzling them gently as they chirped their relief. "My children and I owe you our lives. More than that, you showed us that not all surface dwellers are driven by greed and cruelty." "Surface dwellers?" Jake asked. "Your people call us space dragons, but we think of ourselves as the children of the void. We travel between stars, seeking knowledge and protecting the innocent." Emerald's expression became sad. "The Zephyrians captured me during a rescue mission. They planned to use me and my children as living weapons." Jake felt his anger rising again at the thought of anyone treating Emerald and her family as property. "Well, they're gone now, and you're safe." "Safe and in debt to the human colony of Kepler 442b, Emerald replied formally. "This debt will not be forgotten." Over the following weeks, Jake worked with Emerald to refine the technological interface they had discovered during the battle. The dragon's natural abilities, enhanced by human engineering, opened possibilities that neither species had imagined alone. "The healing is progressing perfectly," Lisa reported during one of her daily examinations. "She'd be ready to fly within another week." Jake looked up from the communication array he was installing in Emerald's scale matrix. "And the babies?" "Growing fast. They're already showing signs of developing their own energy capabilities." The three hatchlings had become regular fixtures around the colony base, charming everyone with their curiosity and intelligence. They seemed particularly fascinated by Jake's repair work, often watching him with the same intense focus their mother showed. "They want to learn," Emerald explained one day as Jake worked on upgrading the base's power systems. "My people value knowledge and skill above all else. You have shown them that humans possess both. What will you do when you're fully healed?" Jake asked. "Resume my mission. There are others like me who need rescue from those who would exploit them." Emerald paused, considering her words carefully. "But perhaps I will not travel alone anymore." Jake looked up at her with surprise. "What do you mean?" The interface we developed could work on a permanent basis. You could come with me, help me free others of my kind? Emerald's expression became hopeful. The galaxy needs more people like you, Jake Martinez. People who see a broken thing and fix it, no matter how strange or dangerous it might be. Jake looked around at the colony base that had been his home for 3 years. It was a good life, but Emerald was offering him something extraordinary. The chance to travel between stars, to help rescue beings that most people didn't even believe existed. What about my responsibilities here? The knowledge you would gain could benefit your colony immeasurably. And my people would be forever in humanity's debt. Lisa and Marcus joined them, having